All right, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be somewhat of a continuation of the working and traveling abroad. So I was talking to some people and they were asking me questions about owning a business abroad. So I figured, well, why not? I do have experience with working with, partaking in a partnership with, and I'll get into the details. But before I start all of that, I do want to say a disclaimer. Business is always morally ambiguous. A lot of times, companies have to take stances where we ask ourselves, well, is this legal, even if it's immoral? Is this one of those situations where by the time we get caught, the fine is less than the profit that we make, and then we just change it? Especially when it comes to doing business in China, licensing, copyright, trademark, a lot of stuff. So I will make a video going into a lot of the details of that in the process. But for the most part, this is going to be more of a story time type of situation, going from 2015 ish until 2019 ish, and then kind of fast forwarding to the present day. So this started because I wanted to buy a Loot Crate box. I was living in China and my birthday was right around the corner and I really wanted one. I went onto their website. You can't select China as a shipping option, even though the majority of the products in their boxes are from China. So I reached out to them by email, by phone. They refused. I said, well, what if just I'll cover the shipping? No, that got me kind of angry. So I spent the next 2, 3 months trying to figure out what my options were with getting it because there were other companies other than them. And nobody, it was always the same response. We don't ship to China. We don't sell to China because of copyright and trademark and all this other stuff. So that's the beginning of the journey. I was like, wait a second. There's an entire industry that has no access to China, and there are people in China who want this. And just to give you a better idea, everybody, when I started my company, was trying to convince me, well, why don't you sell to the US? Why don't you sell to the US? Well, because at that time, the market was already flooded with different versions of a mystery box, right? There was no point. Why do that? Why go and compete in a flooded market, especially when it's a bubble? We're just waiting to see which one is going to pop. If I establish it well in China, I have no competition specifically for what we started with, which was like anime and gaming boxes, and potentially the other ones like the pet boxes and the snack boxes and the travel boxes and the student boxes and everything else you could think of when it came to mystery box. And I'm going to get into why we thought about expanding later on. Here goes the thing. It's not an easy process, and you have to be aware of a lot of different rules and regulations when it comes to doing business in a country. So, for example, in China, there are two types of licenses. Either you have a Chinese business partner, which is the most common one. They own 51% of the company, you own 49% of the company, or however, but you can never own more than 49%. A lot of countries are like this. The Gulf is basically like this. There are free trade zones where they claim you can own 100% of the business. Great, cool, you own the business, but because it's only in the free trade zone, if you have any legal issues, well, where's the courthouse? It's not in the free trade zone. Where's the trademark office? It's not in the free trade zone. None of these things are in the free trade zone. So you own a business license that you can't do anything with outside of doing business in there. It's mostly for shell companies, honestly. It's not really for doing real business. And then there's the other option, which is you don't own the business. You have to write it in somebody who's a local's name and trust that that person is not going to, once they see money coming in, see the company growing or anything like that, not go and forge documents and borrow money against your company or just run off with the company, kind of what happened in my situation. Because in East Asia, if you don't know, there is a thing called the red stamp. It has a different name in China, and it has a different name in Japan, and I don't know if Korea does it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Which basically it is your name stamp. It's in place of a signature, and if somebody has that, they can technically forge documents in your name, and that's how I ended up losing my company. But that's getting ahead of myself. So it took about 2-3 months to get the business license and get the bank account and get all of that approved. There was a lot of background checks, especially for me, because partial expat owner. Once all of that was up and running, there was the trying to figure out the cost, figuring out the shipping, figuring out all this other stuff, and we didn't even have a single customer yet. I called my cousin. Um, he's the one who has the most experience in business, and I was like, look, I might have been a little impulsive and angry because I couldn't order something online and I kind of started a company, but I don't have enough money to expand it the way it deserves. So what should I do? And he said one very important thing. At the end of the month, right? If you have product but no capital, no income, you will lose your employees, right? So what is more important? Having more product or having your employees, especially when you go through the effort of training your employees and building that loyalty is quite important. And this was mostly because, well, we were ordering boxes to put our stuff in, custom made boxes. And the cost difference is insane. If you order um, between 1,000 to 5,000 boxes, it's about $2.50 a box. If you order less than 1,000 boxes, it's $5 a box. And if you order more than 10,000 boxes, it's like $1.25 a box. So the savings is insane. And in the end, I ended up giving in and ordering a smaller amount of boxes. At the same time, we needed a way to promote. Now, back to my disclaimer, I do not own the company anymore. So, whatever. And actually, the commercial's already been taken down and everything. But this is the original commercial for Loot Crate. And we didn't have the budget to make our own commercial. But what we did have the budget for was to take their commercial and make it into our commercial. So here goes the commercial. How does mystery boxing such exquisite geeky gaming choice? They rely on the best. Every month we curate an epic mystery box of ridiculously cool surprises with amazing themes, excitement, and fantasy. Heroes, villains, you get it. Every last box is containing exclusive one-of-a-kind items. And I deliver it to you for under $20 a month. And I guarantee it'll be worth at least twice that much. You're welcome. So get yourself an epic mystery box. Seriously, you already missed out on this one. Epic wins every month. All right. I'm gonna switch my glasses. So that's how you start a company in China. You take somebody else's idea, you find out if anybody else has it, and if they don't, you find out, well, what is the legal ramifications, and if there aren't any, you kind of push forward. And something else we found out was that there were government subsidies available for companies like ours that were literally just copy pasting and trying to implement it in China to help boost China's internal economy, not for export. And one of the first things we were afraid when we went to the competitions to even admit that it wasn't our idea. And then somebody else was, I don't even remember what app it was, but they literally showed a US app and then they showed the Chinese version of the app. And because, if you don't know this, China's internet is behind the Great Firewall of China. So they don't have access to the rest of the internet, and the rest of the world does not have access to their internet. They're basically like North Korea in this situation, unless you have like a VPN or something. So, when the guy went up there and he said that, and the judges like gave him a lot of positive feedback, we were like, oh crap, we can do this too. Fine. We went up there and we did it, and we showed the commercial and everything, and we ended up getting a grant, and which also helped with our funding to get an office and to expand later on. At first, we basically bought the stuff in smaller quantities and then packaged it and shipped it out. And as we did more research and tried to figure things out, we found out that the Chinese market wants stuff from abroad, even if the stuff originates from China. So, for example, like when we went to Taiwan, One Piece licensing, it comes from, like, you can get a One Piece license from there. If you go to Japan, you can get like Nintendo licensing from there, and Sanrio, and lots of anime and gaming licensing comes from Japan as well. And so you just get the licensing that you're allowed to distribute, not to manufacture, because manufacturing is extremely expensive. And then you find out who has the manufacturing, and then you can purchase directly from the supplier, and you repackage it and you stick your own label. And what we ended up doing is we didn't lie. We never said made in Japan or anything like that. Our sticker was just made in China, but it was written in Japanese, right? So we also had those, like, the shiny little sticker that makes it like proof that it's original product, and then it has a QR code you can scan and it goes to a website. We had that as well. And now, honestly, towards maybe the second year, that's all our website was useful for. We didn't get any orders through our website. All of our orders were either through Taobao or through Amazon or just through the events, a ton through the events. But people feel good about it. And that goes into packaging, and where it's really worth spending your money if you're trying to improve the cost of your product. Another thing that I have to give full credit to my partner for was we weren't charging enough. So if you saw, I think it said like 200, and that was my original price. I felt like it's unreasonable. It's not too expensive, and it's not too cheap. 200 RMB is like about $35, and she was like, "We should charge more." And I was like, "No, we're barely scraping by. This is within our first like 6 months." And this was after Shanghai Comic Con, right? Where we made about $25,000 in sale. We only had $5,000 worth of product. We had to put in a ton of orders and give a lot of gifts. And I'm not going to lie, we didn't make a huge profit on that, but we got our name out there, which was key. And she was like, "We need to charge more." I was like, wait, okay, but I'm not going to put more into it. And she's like, "No, no, no, we already put too much. We're going to reduce how much we put in there. We're going to increase the value of those products, like the figurines and whatnot, and we're going to charge more." And that's it. Another thing that was very unique for our company was the fact that in China, there's no such thing as a subscription service prior to us starting Mystery Box. No Chinese people were actually used to it. So trying to get people to sign up for 3 months, 6 months, or a year's worth of boxes, especially when there's no guarantee of what they get in it. Another thing we had to change compared to like the other mystery box companies is we actually had to stick to themes. So instead of like an anime themed box, we had to do a One Piece box, Love Live box, any Overwatch box. Like whatever the theme was, we had to stick to everything in there was specifically that theme. And that was because that's what the Chinese consumer wanted. And it actually made it a lot easier for reoccurring themes, because then what we did for later months, like if we wanted to bring a theme back, well, we already knew what we'd already used. So there was no concern about return customers complaining that they ended up getting the same stuff, be it like, let's say, if we do One Piece, so you'll get like the figurines, obviously, and you'll get a pillow and pins and a poster, right? So the next time, instead of doing the large figurine, we'll do like three smaller figurines. Instead of a pillow, we'll do like a towel and slippers or sandals, which we started printing. And I'll get into that later on. But it changed it. And we made it more expensive, and we ended up with more sales. By late 2018, we were making over $10,000 a month. And for China, that's really another thing that changed massively was, and this has to do with my like accounting and bookkeeping, was calculating which products would it be cheaper to manufacture ourselves. For example, pins. We were buying pins at like 3 RM, which is about 50 cents. And to manufacture them yourself costs about half an RMB. Great. That's a massive difference. What about packaging? Okay, how much does the packaging cost? Again, just like the boxes, the more you order from a wholesaler, the cheaper it is. So we were like, okay, well, how much are we actually printing? How much are we actually using? How much are we actually, and what is the labor cost of hiring somebody? And it turned out to be, for our specific situation, especially since we wanted not only to print it, we wanted to be able to package it instantly, right? We didn't want to wait. We wanted to have instant, so we started buying the printing machines. We started buying the labeling machines, all of it, barcoding, all of those things. So it gradually built up to this point where everything was in house except for the figurines. And it was good for a while. And then let's just say, wherever there is money to be made and family gets involved, things fall apart always. So I think I'm just going to end it there, and I'll make a follow-up video about when I was in Qatar and when I was in Turkey and the US. And I'll also get into some of the other topics that I feel like are really important about, like packaging and distribution. Should you outsource it or should you just keep it in-house? Laws, and yeah, get into that in another video. Thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you have any other questions.